guys, it's me, Halloween Dan, and a little bit later than normal because, not gonna lie to you guys, I've already filmed this video and then I accidentally deleted it. Yeah, I'm a friggin' idiot. But I really wanted to get this video out. I wanted to do this today because this is something I've already delayed enough. About 2 weeks ago, a challenge was thrown down at me.
How dare them challenge me with their somewhat primitive skills?
And I really wanted to use today to accept that challenge. The challenge in question is a horror movie challenge, and it was thrown at me by my good friends David and Jamie over at Haunt of the Roxbury. They did this challenge where they reeled off their favourite horror movies, and they found it quite easy because they actually quite like some horror movies. But they were laughing when they nominated me.
No, I want to say, you know who I want to say?
Who do you want to say?
Your brother from another mother. I want to say him. But I know he's not actually a huge
This is true.
horror fan.
The Halloween Don is not a horror fan.
He is not a huge horror fan. So Halloween Dan, if you're watching this, you know what? I'd like to hear your friendly horror picks.
I have said many times that horror movies are not really my thing. Yeah, I'm a weirdo. I've said it before and I'll say it again. For me, horror movies and Halloween are two separate things. They don't necessarily collide, and the reasons I like Halloween have nothing to do with horror. Whereas I think for a lot of people, which is fine by the way, horror and Halloween are irreversibly linked. You can't have one without the other. So when I say I love Halloween, but I don't like horror, people, well, they raise an eyebrow and question me. So when this challenge was directed at me, thanks again, David and Jamie, joking, I really didn't know where I was going to go, and I thought I'm really going to struggle with this. But as I read through the list and I thought about it, I actually realised about halfway through that I secretly like more horror movies than I led on to. There are certain things, slasher movies and the likes, I'm not a huge fan of, but actually there's a huge array of horror related material that I actually quite like.
Who are you?
So let's get into this list and let me share with you the somewhat surprise list of horror movies that I like. Let's do this. So the first question simply says, name your favourite black and white horror movie. And there can be but one answer.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Frankenstein's monster. When I was a kid, Dracula was the thing I was most scared of. I saw the original Dracula probably when I was about 10. And vampires and Dracula just seemed like the scariest thing ever. And Frankenstein's monster always felt like the kind of stupid uncle of the whole Universal Monsters array. It didn't feel like he was a real serious character. And as a teenager, I read the book of Frankenstein's monster at school. And the story I thought the story was incredible. So probably by the time I was about 14 or 15 was the first time I saw the original Frankenstein's monster. And my God, guys, what a movie. Though it's completely different from the book, and lots of names have been switched and changed about, we all know what the story is, right? So this is Henry Frankenstein in the movie. Originally, it's Victor Frankenstein. And he is bringing back dead bodies to life. And he creates his creature, Frankenstein's monster. And just everything you think of as a classic horror movie is in this movie. In fact, it probably created most of the horror movie cliches that we now think of as cliches. But they're not cliches in this movie because it was the first to do them. Everything from the thunderstorm over a dark, depressing castle to the being chased by angry mob with pitchforks and torches to the burning of a windmill. It's all in this movie because this movie created it. For me, and I think many, Boris Karloff is just the ultimate Frankenstein's monster. There's probably been better looking ones and ones that are closer to what the character should be, but he still stands alone as the greatest Frankenstein's monster of all time, as far as I'm concerned. He is amazing, and this movie is amazing. So if by some chance you've never seen the original Frankenstein, go and check it out. The next question is your favorite vampire horror movie. And it's somewhat obvious again.
You're so obvious.
It has to be Dracula. Now, I actually like two different Draculas. I like the original 1930s Dracula with Bela Lugosi, but I also really like the more modern, updated one starring Gary Oldman. I think the two are classics in their own right. The Gary Oldman one, I actually watch on a quite regular basis. Just the way it's filmed and everything about it is so spot on for the character. It's creepy, it's malicious, it's aggressive, it's obviously quite gory in parts, but it's also very beautifully shot and just dripping with sophistication. The original, though, has this sort of almost spellbinding magic about it. And that, of course, this is the epitome of what we think of when we think of Dracula. The slicked back hair, the cape and the high collar, the white ashy skin complexion. That is Dracula. It doesn't matter how many times Dracula is reinvented, he is the Dracula we all have in mind when we think of Dracula. And for me, it's the epitome of what a good vampire movie is. This classic character scaring the hell out of people, sucking blood from necks. It's what made me go to bed with the blankets around my neck till I was about 12. This character did that. Question number three is your favorite paranormal movie. And this is a difficult one for me because paranormal movies are kind of my wheelhouse. If I had to pick my favorite kinds of horror movies, the paranormal spooky ones are the ones I always go for. And I've kind of got two in mind, though. One is definitely not really a horror movie, but it's just worth a shout out. The first one, the one that isn't really a horror movie, is The Others, starring Nicole Kidman. It's just a really good spooky movie that has all the good elements. Spooky house in the middle of a spooky landscape, spooky English children, very creepy British children in this particular movie, and ghosts. And what I love about The Others is just when you kind of think you know where the movie's going and it almost feels a little bit obvious, suddenly it's not. And suddenly the whole thing spins on its head, and the obvious ending you thought you were going to get, it's not actually obvious at all, and it completely flips what you expect. But I don't know whether anyone would really count that as a horror movie, though it does have a few jumpy moments. So instead, as my main answer, I've gone for Paranormal Activity. That movie, when I first saw it, really had me on the edge of my seat. It had me jumping like every 2 minutes. I think why Paranormal Activity gets to me and why ghost things always get to me anyway is because there's a bit of me that believes they could be real. Like ghosts could really be attacking us and doing stuff to us. I've always kind of had this spiritual side to me, and it kind of makes sense to me. To see a movie that's filmed, it's filmed in like real time with a camcorder, and it's kind of like almost like it's real footage, found footage kind of a thing. That freaks me out in its own right. Ever since the days of Blair Witch Project, this sort of the way those sorts of movies were filmed has always freaked me out. And it's basically a couple documenting their paranormal activity that's happening in the house. It's getting worse and worse and worse. But what you realize is the paranormal activity isn't linked to the house, it's linked to the people. Favorite zombie horror movie is another difficult one for me, but for a different reason. And that's because I do kind of avoid zombie movies. I'm not gonna lie. And it's not because I don't like zombie movies. It's because, and this is revealing a little bit too much about myself, I think, I'm one of them weirdos that actually thinks a zombie apocalypse could happen.
What the freak?
Yeah. Like when the pandemic began, I was sort of like, this is it. It's happening. Pack your bags, honey. We're going to the Welsh mountains. Like I had a cave picked out. I was waiting for the moment when the alerts started coming through on my phone. Yeah, zombie apocalypse things definitely freak me out because there's a bit of me that believes they could be real. And again, I've kind of got two different movies in mind, but for two very different reasons. The first one is the classic 28 Days Later. It's a really terrifying zombie movie. I was actually peer pressured into watching it, And I'm glad I did watch it because it is really, really good. But it freaked me out. I think the fact that it's set in the UK as well freaked me out even more. But it is a great zombie movie and it's terrifying. But it's got those fast-moving zombies that... I don't like fast-moving zombies because I think if a zombie apocalypse really happened, maybe I could escape the slow ones, but the fast ones, no chance.
Ooh, you know you did.
So that scares me in its own right. But if I actually had to sit down and choose a zombie movie to watch, it would actually be Shaun of the Dead. And I know what some of you are going to say, that's not really a proper zombie movie because it's kind of like a horror comedy, but I like that combination. I need the comedy to get me through the horror. I need that comic relief to get me through the zombie stuff. Without it, I just can't watch it. Even the zombie stuff in that movie freaks me out a bit. The comic relief in Shaun of the Dead is great. If you've never seen Shaun of the Dead, definitely check it out. It's actually hilarious. It's basically a movie paying homage, but also making fun of the zombie movie genre. So definitely check it out. It's a lot of fun. Question number 5 is your favorite werewolf movie. And this is difficult again, because actually, of all the horror characters, werewolves and wolfmen are not really my vibe. I don't really find them particularly scary.
Get away!
I'm not saying that I'd like to meet one on a dark night on the English moors, but at the exact same time, they're not the character that curdles my blood with fear. In saying that, I do really like An American Werewolf in London. That's a classic, and it's one of those original movies. The way it's shot and everything is great. And it's that original movie, isn't it, that's got the scene where he actually turns into a werewolf. I think it was probably the first time we'd ever really properly seen that. Sort of the stretching of joints and the turning of his face to a snout. Terrifying, right? But if I actually had to pick a Wolfman-related movie, it would be The Wolfman. I can't remember what year this is. This is like early 2000s. But it's really, really good. It's one of them ones where the CGI is actually good. It's not just over the top. There are practical effects in it, but it's mostly CGI. But the way it's done is really, really good. It's quite gory. It's got a really good story where this kind of werewolf's curse is kind of an inherited thing, and he's the next in line to inherit it. It's a great, great film, set in London again. There's werewolf rampaging through the streets of London. It's really good. But yeah, wolf-related stuff. Not a huge fan. Question number 6 is, what's your favorite exorcism or possession movie? And again, there can be only one answer, and I think it's a pretty obvious answer, and that's The Exorcist. Now, The Exorcist was one of them movies that, to be honest, I was more frightened of that movie's reputation than I was of the movie itself. Years before I even saw it, I was warned off it. Even my dad, who's a pretty staunch sort of northern English guy who doesn't really get freaked out by a lot of stuff, he told me that back in the day when this was a brand new movie, people were having to leave the cinema and they were being sick in the foyer. It just wasn't a lot of fun. People could not watch this movie without having some kind of a violent reaction to it. And so, whereas that might interest a few people, that really turned me off from it and I didn't want to go anywhere near it. As a result of that, I didn't actually sit down and watch this movie till I was in my 20s. It freaked me out too much, just the idea of it. But when I finally did sit down and watch it, though it wasn't as frightening as I'd expected it to be, it still sent a shiver down my spine. Just the way the movie is played out, where this quite innocent little girl who's just a normal little kid suddenly starts to transform into a demon before your eyes. And, you know, they go through all the scientific things. Is she just falling ill? What's this disease? And eventually they start to realize that there's much more going on here, and it isn't really scientific. It's more to do with demonology. So in come The Exorcist. It's a really frightening movie, and there's a lot of creepy, horrible things that go on here. The practical effects in this movie are incredible. It's one of them ones, don't watch it alone on a dark winter's night. You will have nightmares. Question number 7 is your favorite creature feature horror movie. And at first I didn't really know what to say when it came to this. But there was one, and again, I think it's a pretty obvious one, and that's Jaws. I grew up in an era just after Jaws had been a big thing, a big blockbuster. And in that era, Jaws was just the most terrifying thing ever. If you didn't grow up going into pools or going to the seaside and going into the sea, and one of you or your parents or something at some point didn't go da-da, da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da, and pretend to be a shark and chase you into the sea, I'm not sure you had a childhood, because that's basically what my childhood was. Every time we went swimming, someone would pretend to be the shark. Sometimes it was me. You would get chased around the pool, and in those moments, it was actually terrifying. It was just someone going da 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 da. But that music, it just instilled fear into everybody that heard it, because they knew what that entailed was this terrifying giant plastic shark. I was terrified of that movie throughout much of my childhood. It's kind of corny and cheesy to look back on now, but it's still brilliant. That shark is still terrifying. And to this day, I still go into pools and go da 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 to my kids and passing on the fear. The next one, question 8, is favorite sci-fi horror movie. And this is another difficult one because, to be honest, space is creepy, right? Everything to do with space, any sci-fi movie can be scary because of it taking place in space. Even things like 2001, A Space Odyssey, has its creepy, scary moments. It's kind of more of a thriller. I wouldn't describe it as a horror, but it's just scary that it's in space and this robot guy is like losing his mind. But the one I've actually picked doesn't take place in space, actually, and I don't even know whether anyone else will class this as a horror movie, but I do, and that's Signs. Now, if you've not seen Signs, it stars Mel Gibson, and they're on a farm and crop circles start appearing in their fields, and they realize that there's a lot of weird things going on all around the world, and basically it's an alien invasion. But it's done in the creepiest, sneakiest, weirdest way you've ever seen one of these movies happen. It's another one of those where the ending is kind of unexpected, and the whole thing, there's a lot of things going on all through the movie that you can't figure out why this is important, why are they pointing this out, and then it makes sense at the end. The ending was a little bit stupid, not gonna lie. But the rest of the movie, all the way through it, you're kind of on the edge of your seats. And there's a moment where you first see these aliens, and you really do. The first time I ever saw it, I really did sort of jump out of my seat, just like the characters in the movie do. It's a really quite terrifying edge of your seat movie. Not sure it's classed as a horror movie, but it made me jump, so I'm classing it as one. Number 9 is favorite psychological horror movie. And there are loads. There are lots and lots of psychological movies that I could list here that I think, and this is again another one of my things, if I had to watch a horror movie, it'd be this kind of genre of horror movie. I wanted to say Silence of the Lambs initially, because I mean, it's terrifying but brilliant. And you know, Hannibal Lecter and all those, that creepy prison and all the stuff, and Buffalo Bill and all those murders, and it's really, really terrifying edge of your seat stuff. But there is one psychological horror movie that literally had me cowering with fear for most of the way through it when I first saw it. And that is The Shining. What the most terrifying part about The Shining is, if you've seen The Shining, actually not a lot happens. There isn't a huge amount that's happening. It's just this building fear of what could happen. It's spooky and creepy, and there's some pretty gross scenes in that movie. And it's basically, you're just basically watching Jack Nicholson's character lose his mind, which no one does it like Jack Nicholson when you have to play a character losing their mind. He does it brilliantly. And that whole going through the door.
Here's Johnny.
Classic. Absolutely classic. There's nothing about that movie that isn't classic. And it's just terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying, and it just messes with your mind. And if that's not what a psychological horror movie is supposed to do, then I don't know what does. Question number 10 is probably the only one I really don't know how to answer, and that is favorite holiday-themed horror movie. And I think what they're going for there is like something like Krampus, which is a Christmas horror movie. And I don't ever think of watching a horror movie at any other time of the year. I don't even think about watching them at Halloween, to be honest with you. I've gone for maybe too much of an obvious pick here, and I've just gone for the 1970s, the original Halloween. I remember, again, this was another movie that kind of got peer pressured into, where people were like, how can you like Halloween, but then not like Halloween, as in the movie Halloween? My friends made me sit down and watch it, and it's a slasher movie, and I'm not a slasher movie fan. But I have to say, I actually enjoyed it. The story was good. The character of Michael Myers is good. It's a good character. It's a good story. They're just everything about it. It's creepy, but also slashery. It's got everything. It's really, really good. I can honestly say I only like a few of the other movies out of the franchise. It's that first one that really piques my interest. But I think the whole franchise is pretty good, and it's one of the few slasher franchises that I'm actually will sit down and watch. It's pretty good. Question 11 is just optional custom category, where you can kind of make up your own category. I don't know what to put here, except that the category I'm going to create, because I think it kind of deserves its own, is Alfred Hitchcock. I'm a massive fan of a lot of Alfred Hitchcock's movies. I like Rear Window, I like The Birds, and of course I like Psycho. All of these, they're all more psychological thrillers than they are anything else, but I love them. I think they're real edge of your seat. I think Rear Window, strangely, is probably my favorite, because there's just something about this guy watching his neighbors go day to day and then perhaps witnessing a murder. He doesn't really know if he's witnessed a murder. He just kind of thinks he might have done. And it's real edge of your seat stuff. You really should watch that movie if you haven't done. It's gripping. It really, really is. I think that's the only thing I can put in that section 11, because Alfred Hitchcock's movies just deserve their own section, to be honest. But that's it. That's my list. That's my list of stuff. And I'm quite surprised with myself that I managed to cover so many things there, because I have always said I'm not a huge fan of horror, but apparently I am.
You're a liar, a cheater, a sinner.
Now is the part of this sort of challenge where I have to pass on the book, like here's the baton, to somebody else. Now, most of the people I would have named have already been named. So I'm going to choose my British pals here, and I'm going to choose Haunted Skull and Ominous Haunter, because I think they actually are horror buffs. I think they probably do like a few horror movies, and I would love to hear some of their responses to this. So Haunted Skull, Ominous Hunt, I will be tagging you in this video. I will leave the list in the description of the questions, and I'd like to hear some answers, so please, please do. Anyway, guys, I hope that was okay. David and Jamie, thank you for this. I hope I answered those questions sufficiently for you, and I will see you in the next one. Keep it spooky. Bye.